As his following grew online, he became one of the first to reach Facebook's friend limit and accumulated more than 800,000 followers on Twitter. Gary's first business book, entitled Crush It, was released in the fall of 2009 and debuted as a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller. His second book, The Thank You Economy, has also hit the New York Times bestseller list. His ultimate goal is to one day own the New York Jets. Please welcome Gary Vaynerchuk.
It's loud. Good afternoon. I will start by saying that for some unknown reason, when I hit the stage, my language becomes a little crude, so I probably will be cursing a little bit during this keynote, so I just want to apologize to anybody who could possibly be offended by that. I promise I'm not doing it on purpose. I just think I become Richard Pryor when I come up here. So, yeah, so, thrilled to be here. Want to talk a little bit about, the business world. I know it's under the context of social media. This will have to do a lot with the content that I wrote about in a book called The Thank You Economy. And I want to really make this as interactive as possible, so I'll give you guys my spiel, and then hopefully we can do some Q&A and can answer some questions. I filter the world through business, so most of the stuff that I'll talk about on these phenomenons of the web will be from that angle, but obviously these platforms have huge impact, as we've seen in what's going on in the Middle East and other places. This is not just business, this is social, this is fundraising, this is going to be education. We are talking about a platform that is easily, in my opinion, the most underrated thing in our society today. I truly believe that every person in this audience, including myself, even though I live and breathe this, grossly underestimates the internet. I think we take it for granted, and I truly, truly believe we don't really understand how big the whole thing is. I mean, the internet, the consumer internet, I don't want any of the tech geeks out here saying, actually, it's been around. I know that. I'm talking about the consumer internet has basically been around since 1995, when Windows 95 and AOL started spamming our actual mailboxes. That's when most people got on the web. So, the internet is a 17-year-old platform. We are in the very early stages of all this. Now, it's fun for me because the majority of this crowd is younger, so usually when I give talks at business forums, I always ask people, how many people do not remember the world pre-internet? And usually I get very few hands. How many people in this room do not remember the world pre-internet? Raise your hand. All right, some good memories, some youngsters, fair enough. More than normal. And so, to me, still, even at this school, as young as this audience is going, about 70-80% of you remember it. So we're talking about something new. So it's funny, I'm going to talk about social media right now, but honestly, I don't really give a shit about Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr or Foursquare or any of that stuff. I didn't grow up techie at all. By the time I was 20, I never even had a computer. The most teched out I was in 1994 when I was 18 was nobody in the world could beat me in Sega Genesis NHL 94. So, I'm not really coming at this from a tech angle. I'm not in love with gadgets. I'm not going to stand outside for the new iPad. This to me is much more cultural and much more about business. My background is pretty simple. I was born in Belarus in the former Soviet Union, so I'm an immigrant. We came to this country when I was 3 years old. I lived in a studio apartment, the 1/8 of the size of this stage. We were dead broke. I lived with 8 family members. It was super immigrant story. My dad got a job as a stock boy in a liquor store in New Jersey, and that's how it kind of all started. He eventually became the manager of that store, so we moved to Edison, New Jersey to be close to the store. That is where I started my career as a business guy. I did have 8 lemonade stands when I was 5. I put all my friends in the neighborhood to work. You guys are fairly young, but some of the older peeps in the crowd, you guys remember the big wheels, the little thing I used to ride my big wheels around town to pick up my cash from my friends like I was fucking Tony Soprano or something. So That was awesome, and I had a great business. As a matter of fact, it's amazing what you learn when you're a little kid. Even at 6 years old, I started understanding business. I had this one friend, his name was Tony Conrad. I still remember his name. It was actually quite weird. I was very young. 6 is young. I actually didn't know why he wasn't around all the time. In hindsight, his parents were divorced and he came in the summer. And he was pretty epic. He like made his own signs. All my other friends were just lazy. I'm like, go stand there, like, okay. And they like basically just do it. But he was kind of hustling himself. So he made signs. So he sold the most lemonade out of all my friends, but I used to count how many cups I gave everybody every morning, and I could do the simple math of a quarter times, and he used to skim cash off the top. He used to steal like $1 or $2 every day, but since he sold so much more lemonade than everybody else, I kept him around. You can learn some shit when you're 6. Then I became 11, 12, and I started a huge baseball card business. I literally would tour around the malls of New Jersey and make $2,000 to $3,000 a weekend selling baseball cards when I was 13. When you have $30,000 in cash under your bed and you're 13 years old and you're not selling weed, you're doing a good job. So I was pretty proud of myself. I had a nice business. Everything was going great. And I just thought I was going to build the biggest baseball card business of all time. That's what I was going to do. I was, I'm scared to say this here. I was really not that into school. I was like, fuck class. I was like, if I'm making, $3,000 a weekend, I prorate $150,000 a year. Like I had a really crazy attitude about the way I kind of looked at the world. But I was very entrepreneurial. I think as you guys sit here and as you move on to the next part of your lives, the number one thing I will tell you, and the schooling and all that very much matters, but I promise you, I made a video that has gone somewhat viral. It's gotten hundreds of thousands of views, and it's called basically "A Giraffe Isn't a Penguin." I think there's a lot of people that are going to tell you what to do and how to do it, definitely parents and advisors and teachers and professors, and that's great. And molding is very important. I think it has tremendous value. But gut check, when you go back to your rooms, look yourself in the mirror, a lot of people know who they are. And I think it's super important for you to execute against your strengths. I think a big part of my success in my career has been I've known who I was at a very young age. I'm a business guy. I like selling stuff. I like marketing. And so I hone those skills. I kind of think of it as athletes. The peeps that make the NBA and the NFL, you know what they're doing? They're not really paying attention to a whole lot other than they're practicing for 9 hours a day. Now, it takes talent. I promise you, I'd be thrilled to be the quarterback of the New York Jets, but as you can clearly see, that was not going to happen. So it wouldn't have mattered how much I was going to practice, and that's kind of how I think about business. Right now, after the movie came out, everybody thinks that they're Zucks, and they're going to launch this app, and they're going to make a trilly. Let me promise you something. If you haven't sold stuff before you're 15 years old, you're probably not a salesperson. You have to kind of really, really know who you are. I did. And so when I got involved in my family business, which was a terrible story, I was getting ready for the biggest baseball card show of the year. It was the most expensive table I bought all year, $2,000, getting ready in the morning. And my dad comes in, he goes, "You're coming to work this morning." And I said, No, Dad, I think you're misunderstanding. I have my biggest show of the year. I'm not sure how many of you guys have Soviet dads, but I lost that argument. So he dragged me into the car and I'm driving to the store. We lived 45 minutes from the store. And I cried the whole way, just bawling. I was devastated. I finally composed myself about 3 minutes before we got to the store, and I said, "Dad, how much are you going to pay me?" And he said, $2 an hour. And then I really started crying. And basically, how many of you in this room know the movie The Goonies? Raise your hand. Amazing. Classic. Basically, from the day I walked into my dad's store when I was 14 until I was 16, I basically became Sloth from the Goonies. I was forced to stay in the basement for 12 hours a day, bagging ice for $2 an hour. So clearly, I hated it. I went from going to the malls of New Jersey and making 2 G's, hanging out with my friends and girls, to making $24 a day in my dad's store's basement, bagging ice. So 14 to 16 sucked shit because every weekend, every holiday, every winter vacation, every summer day, from my freshman year of high school, I literally never had more than 3 days off in the summertime or vacation time. I just worked. Finally, when I was 16, I was allowed to come upstairs.